the things that we're going to walk through today are threads being automatically named, that the uploads are showing the processing status, that we have a connecting indicator to our prompt bar. We'll show a behind the scenes glimpse into how the assets are being processed and how that's been adjusted to improve the reliability and observability of that. And we'll also go over how the assets are being summarized and how we're generating keywords. At that point, I'm going to hand it over to Andy, and Andy will take over screen sharing as we look at some navbar changes to the homepage, the new sign up button on the homepage, some improvements for drag and drop, how we can use the escape key to cancel focus when you're on a prompt, and something that he did cool for dark mode. Okay, so let's move on down the road to Chrome. Where's Chrome? There's Chrome. And I'm going to open the inspection panel here, clear all this fun stuff out. And we're going to start off with describe baseball in 20 words. And so baseball is a bat and ball sport. Okay, that sounds like it listened to me and kind of understood what I was looking for there. And I'm going to pull up the last message that was exchanged here. And we can see a label here, which is baseball basics, is what it decided to call this chat. Now, we don't have anything in the UI at this moment that would, maybe up at the top left, it could say baseball basics as the thread name or something like that. But in the soon to be released tree control, the reason this is important is because it would say baseball basics on the thread that you're focused on the left-hand side. And so that is thread automatic renaming at work.
Aaron, I'm just trying to think about whether this is the same thing as a tag in Gen 1, and I think it's not, because a tag in Gen 1 is something that I put content like files into, and this is a label on the conversation. Is that a true statement about how they're different?
Yes, this would be the title or name of the conversation. And again, the way that it will, and the reason this is important is because when we have the tree control on the left-hand side and you can see your threads, you wouldn't want them all to just, right now, they're just new is what they're all titled as. And you would want to be able to navigate from your baseball thread to your football thread to your hockey thread or whatever threads you got going on. Now, if we look at the message before, you'll see there is no label here because the conversation wasn't complete. And so the LLM may not have had enough information to properly suggest a title. And so the way that this works behind the scenes right now is on the last response of the first exchange, as soon as the response is complete, we'll go ahead and solicit a name from the LLM. And that is automatic thread naming at work, soon to be visible in the UI with our tree control.
Okay. There's not too many this time for the front end. I think next week is when you're gonna see a really big change. But for now, we have some updates to the navigation bar. You'll have noticed maybe that now we have the work, life, and play links here that take you to the use cases, and they stay highlighted as you go into sub use cases and prompts. This game was a result from direct feedback from a user. I don't remember who, Jodio. And we also have the enterprise. Yep. And we also have the enterprise grade link here that takes us to the Storytell page with more information about what makes Storytell good for enterprises. The next change is we have a big white sign up button now that should attract more attention from the users. This came as a suggestion from Sandy, our growth advisor, and pretty much all startups do this. The sign up button is what you want to encourage, and then the sign in. You already have those users, so it can be a bit less emphasized. They know where to look. Next up, we have the file drag and drop fix. It was working at some point, it stopped working. I'm happy to announce now it's working again.
Mhm.
So you should be able to pick up a file and drop it, and it should actually work,
Awesome.
as you can
They
see
work
here.
on staging, Andy, or just development server?
It should be on staging as well. Staging is having some issues with the database. I wrote something in the chat
Mm,
in
okay.
Gen 2. It's yeah,
Oh
we need to
yeah,
look into it.
having some issues.
Yeah. Okay, next up, one that Mark wrote down as a task, and I could feel his passion for having this happen through the ticket, and that's to be able to hit escape when you're focusing on the chat prompt and for it to not be focused on it anymore. So Mark, you're welcome. It was bothering me too because
Amazing.
I always do that and
Yeah.
it's not working. Okay, and the last change is something that I can't show the before of, but basically when you were in dark mode, you couldn't see the video because I made a mistake some time ago and left like some gradient overlay that was completely covering the video in dark mode, but
And
that's
when you
now
say
solved and you
video,
can
Andy,
see
you mean like the
the
moving flowy
background. Yeah,
thing?
the moving background. It used to just be like a black and blue gradient for a while. So that's solved.
Andy, I've got a one more thing ask for you. I know that Aaron's back
Okay.
now, so maybe Aaron takes over again. To the extent that you have a peek of the tree control that you can show us before we get off the call today, that would be really cool. Just to
Okay.
let,
Just a sneak
let
peek.
people, yeah, just a sneak peek.
Okay. I have it. It's ready.
Oh, cool. Okay, great. You want to
Okay.
talk through that for a sec?
Yeah, I'll just talk quickly through it. So first of all, none of these are working. It's just all mock data. We haven't made it work yet. So just so you know. There were a few design changes we made with also Flavio's help. So one thing was that we have a better distinction of like a sidebar, a first column, and then the main content, which is the second column. And the tabs are now moved on the same row with the rest of the top bar so that we can save on vertical space, especially on smaller screens. It just makes it feel more spacious. So now the big one is the new tree control, where you'll be able to manage the different threads that you have and the knowledge that you have. So first of all, you'll have a search bar where you can try to filter out some of these based on their names. So like I can filter by SOC compliance, for example. You're not able to start a new project, but for now we have a button to let users know that they will be able to start a new project, and it's behind the feature coming soon gate. And you can see that we just assume the current project that the user has is just like my project. They just have one project, and here they'll be able to see their different threads sorted chronologically. So this is one thread, and Aaron's labeling of the threads is what he was showing will become this. These are going to be the names that Aaron's generating. And then you'll be able to manage your knowledge in this section here. And we've split it up in files that are powering this thread and files that are just in your knowledge base, but you're not using them for this particular conversation. So from here, if you hover over them, you'll be able to remove files from the thread, or you'll be able to add them into the conversation so that you can mention them. And lastly, to give users more control, they'll be able to kind of resize the sidebar and also get rid of it entirely if they don't need it. They're just going to have the nice big screen of text. But for those that do want it, they can make it as big as they want and they can see their stuff better.
Okay, cool. Getting back to here, we're going to go to Storytell development. And I'm going to say hello. And then we're going to upload a file and my handy dandy Bitcoin white paper, which I've uploaded 1,000 times. And we can see that we are currently extracting that file. I'll zoom in a little bit. And once we are done extracting that file, we're summarizing the file. In the act of summarizing, we created a summary of the file. We also tried to extract or create our own title for the file. And we also created keywords for that file. And now we can go ahead and chat with the file. What is this file about? And so I will switch to another demonstration. This is kind of the behind the scenes of our generation 2. And because we're in the development environment, I'll go ahead and zoom in on that. We can pop over to things like our overview of the development environment, where we can see the request rate here. Every time there's one of these little lines, that means we had a deployment. And so we can see what were the things that we deployed. And we can go over to infrastructure, and we can see the different hardware components that are running in the background. This is our UI server, for example, and you can see our database cluster. And these are the pub sub topics, which is a messaging queue that we dispatch messages over in order to have them be reliable. And so if I come up here, here's a diagram of these kind of messaging queues at work. And so our control plane component, which is the API server, this is the computer, if you will, that we're chatting with or uploading files to. It is sending a message over this message queue to this processable assets queue, and then it is subscribing to that message. At some point, when we're ready and scale starts to matter, you'll see one of these lines change, and there'll be a new component that gets introduced, which is pulling messages off of this processable assets queue to process the files. And the reason that's important, well, there are a couple of reasons, but one of them is just the memory constraints. You can see this control plane computer has 512 megabytes of memory right now, which is more than enough for serving an API. But if you imagine uploading one 500 megabyte file, that could completely consume all of the memory here. And so this is which is actually one of the problems that we have in Smart Chat today, where the one computer is trying to do everything, and it has crashed before because it's just trying to process too many files, as one example. And so there was an architecture change to slowly start to expand out, where we're sending a message over this queue. And what that means is that if this computer crashes and that message is out in the queue, that this queue will continue to try to redeliver that message again and again and again. So let's say that we did have some type of outage and this computer goes down. It would be a delay in processing those files, but they should be reprocessed, which is another architectural difference. I remember it wasn't that long ago where we had an outage and we basically lost everybody's files that they had uploaded. I'm sure Erica remembers that one. And so right now, just keeping things simple and as cheap as possible, it's just one computer still doing it all, but it's a trivial architecture change now to kind of add another box that messages get pulled from here. And so that's a neat architectural change, but it's also a really cool change for observability. And so in fact, we can see that 9 seconds ago, we had an error. Somebody uploaded a file maybe because it looked like the file I uploaded was successful. But very easy for us to go in and start to diagnose and see what's going on with whatever file was uploaded that had an error. We can see we had an invalid argument, pages exceeded the limit. So yeah, this is one of the known bugs where we can only process a PDF right now that's up to 15 pages. And that's why this particular one failed. And it's easy for me to see that because the error is right here logged and isolated in the way it's logged. But let's say that I didn't know, I didn't just stumble upon the message here. We can go through and say, focus on the control plane, and we can focus just on these processable assets. And now it's very easy to go through and see all of the processable assets. And in fact, this is probably, my guess is that same asset being tried again and again and again and again, because we're trying to recover. And the queue doesn't necessarily know if it was an error that the file can never be processed again, or if it was a temporary error that we can recover from. And then just one last thing, since we haven't looked at this stuff real quick, is just some of the stats that we have here. And Alex will have plenty more stats in the dashboards that he builds. But we're focused on the development environment, and we can see things like the request rate. So over here we had a lot of people using the development server in comparison to last night nobody's using the development server. And then right now you can see it's kind of picking back up probably for this demo. And another reason why these metrics are really important is if we look at the 7-day trend here, this is something I spotted yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, that caused me concern, which was this line coming up here. And what that line was go routines, which are not being closed out or completed. And the reason that is important is because that threatens the stability of the entire system. You could imagine like you're making a telephone call and you're never hanging up that telephone call. And eventually all of the phone lines that you have access to are going to be open and you can't make any more calls. And so this helped me actually spot a bug. You can see the trend here and here and here. We're just going up, and it shouldn't look like that. I'm not sure that I squashed it. Yesterday, I was able to get a PR out that I think closed it, but maybe there's another go routine that I've left open. And so, it's just to highlight the importance of data and looking at it quickly, because we would not want that to have happened on Friday when we launched and a bunch of people come and all of a sudden the telephone lines are full. Okay. I don't have anything to show on the assets being summarized other than to say that there is a paragraph of summary that's being created for every asset, and keywords are being created for every asset. I suppose I could do a query in the database, but the way that these are going to show their value is, again, in the tree control. We'll be able to, at some point, imagine that you'll want to download the file that you can see in that tree control so you can remember what file it is that you're working with. And you'll also be able to access this data that we've summarized. The data we've summarized by only doing it once. For example, in the exact demonstration that Andy did earlier, where he mentioned a file and said, please summarize this for me. There's no reason for us to go over the LLM and repeat that summarization because we've already done it once and we paid for that once. And by summarizing, it will help our the embeddings, because will be a very strong signal for our embeddings. And so we'll be able to, I think, efficiently find what appropriate files to grab to put into your query when you're chatting across all of your knowledge. And the keywords, this will be more immediate value. The keywords are going to be showing their value when you search in the top left of the tree control. And so as you start to type white paper, the Bitcoin white paper might pop up if you've uploaded that, because the white paper was the keyword that we've extracted out of the Bitcoin paper. Another way that these keywords, I believe, will be of value, and Andy has shown this before, although we've deactivated the feature at the moment, is in the autocomplete capabilities of the prompt, where it can kind of type ahead and predict what you might type. By extracting these keywords out of all of your knowledge, we'll be able to drive that particular feature. And so it'll be a little while before I think that really cool feature is online, because we're going to have to build a database of these keywords. But as that database gets built, we'll be able to restore that really cool feature of the type ahead that Andy built some weeks ago. Anyways, you may see at some point in the near future that there's a little connecting animation on the prompt bar. And what that
Go to
prompt bar,
staging, maybe. Sorry.
on staging. Storytell staging. I don't know if it's gotten there yet.
It did, but
connecting. This one has the bug of the anonymous users, though. And so what this is doing is it's waiting until we have authenticated you before it's allowing you to chat. And I think on dev, I believe we fixed the connect this bug for anonymous users. If I refresh, we will have created my identity and it should show that I'm connecting. Or if I sign in using my Storytell account, we should see that that connecting goes away.
I think it's actually a different issue. I pinged you in the chat about it.
Okay. Well, connecting. So the demo of showing connecting is perfect. It's absolutely trying to connect, and you can see that. And that ends the demo on the connecting bug, demonstrating the connecting bug. But part of the reason that we have to have this kind of state is there's a little bit of a race condition in that until we've established your identity, we can't create a thread on your behalf, which is why we're waiting to authenticate you as an anonymous user or as a known signed in user. And that has to happen before you can submit a prompt.